what on earth does that even say about our respect and our value of our kids? Like, wow. Actually, Simone, like my girl, little miss, she would just implode if she did not have the freedom to just be curious and explore and to do all these weird, cool experiments that she does. There are 3 key things that I notice that are like major pressures on kids today. Every year, we ask them, like, hey, is there anything you want to do? Any activities you want to do? Welcome back, or welcome to the Conscious Investor Podcast, the show where we talk about health, mindset, and wealth building strategies. I'm your host, Julie Holly. I'm always grateful to share Mondays with you, Conscious Investor. I know I say that every single Monday, and yet I really truly feel that every single Monday because it's so special. And I love Thursdays when we have our interviews, but this is us. It's our time to talk. Now, I know that when you saw I imagine, I don't know, but I imagine when you saw today's episode title, sucks to be a kid today, that you're like, oh gosh, when did Julie go to the dark side? And I just want to reassure you that I didn't go to the dark side. But this is a really important topic, and we're going to dive into it in just a moment in a really big way. But I want you to know, I didn't go to the dark side, but we are going to talk about something in a very, very real way, in ways that we can really support the youth of today, so that, that's going to help secure the future of tomorrow. I'm starting to sound like a politician now, aren't I? Before we dive into today's episode, I want to give a shout out to my friends over at Create Tailwind. There are a lot of companies that offer infinite banking solutions. And Super Rad Steve and I, we've been in the know on infinite banking for years now. And not everyone sets these policies up in your favor or in the proper way. And we have experienced a lot of different things with infinite banking policies. And so that's why I'm willing to say, hey, Create Tailwind, Nick and Jim, they're there to educate you, to support you, to be on your side. And they set up strong policies that are for you. They are service oriented. They are on your side, truly. And that I'm very hesitant. I had one experience where I endorsed, someone, they had too much business come their way, and it really backfired on everybody. And so I'm really mindful as to, who am I referring people to? Are they people of character? Do they have the right product? Do they have the bandwidth to support people? And I absolutely just love the ecosystem that Nick and Jim have created at Create Tailwind, because they check all of those boxes. And they, like me, believe in educating people. They believe in you actually understanding what it is that you're stepping into before you ever sign or do anything at all. So they have a really strong community, and they support you in taking your first or next step. And I absolutely love that. Love it, love it, love it. Hey, did you get your tickets to the Conscious Investor Growth Summit? Super early bird tickets, they will go away. There are only so many tickets allotted for super early bird. In total, there are only 150 tickets available. And this is one of those events where, if you don't want to feel like you're lost in the sea of thousands, if you're like, I really don't need to worry about getting a bunch of new contacts. I really want meaning and substance with the people I meet. And I want to have topics that are going to really enhance my life holistically. This is where you need to be. There is no other event like the Conscious Investor Growth Summit. I know, because I go to a ton of events, and there are a lot of really great events out there. And if you want strategies and tactics and like how to, tackle your next deal, this isn't going to be the event for you. This isn't the tactical one. This is going to teach you other wealth building strategies. We have got land investing this time. We have some other strategies on building wealth that are going to be presented, which is so exciting because there's so many ways that we can build wealth. But we also have people coming and speaking on other really important topics that are going to enhance all parts of your life. Not only that, though, we're just going to have so much fun because it's not just about sitting and listening, but we're going to be doing a lot of activities. And I guess part of me also wants to say, I think that the school teacher in me might be coming out, because I'm starting to come up with like a lot of tactile, just like little quick activities that I want to do with you that will just kind of give you some really great anchor points for just your entire lifetime. Probably things that you'll want to go and do with other people. You should go to consciousinvestorgrowthsummit.com to secure your ticket while you can. But truly, they are selling, and I'm so excited because tickets don't always sell for events until the end. So please do me a solid, get yourself the best deal, and show that you are excited about the event by picking up your ticket now at the super early bird price. Okay, let's talk about this whole thing, sucks to be a kid. I was thinking about this recently. I was thinking about the pressure that a lot of times we as adults feel, right? Especially, we have more responsibilities generally. The older, the more mature we are, advanced. This could start in your earlier years. It could happen later, but a lot of times we end up being blessed to have kids that we're training up to be adults and we're grooming. That's a lot of responsibility. We end up having more responsibilities within our professions. We have more responsibilities within our communities. So as adults, we are feeling more pressure, more responsibility as we are getting older. And I was thinking about Super Red Steve and I have been talking a lot about our childhoods, and we'll get into that. I think he and I are going to record an episode on that. But as we talk about that, it's making me reflect on how challenging this world is for kids. And I am going to contrast this. And I'm going to do this in a way that I don't want to be offensive to you. Like, truly, that's not because I'm trying to dance around it. I'm not just saying that to check a box. Like, I don't want to be offensive. And I'm not saying that Super Rad Steve and I have this figured out. Trust me, we are failing forward. I think we're going forward. But we've definitely done some face plants along the way of raising our amazing teens. But they are so amazing. And I think there are three key things that I notice that are like major pressures on kids today. And I want to tackle those. And then I'm going to share, but I'm going to start with this. Every year we ask my guy and Little Miss, those are my affectionate names for them out in the public. And so every year we ask them, like, hey, is there anything you want to do? Any activities you want to do? If a sports or an opportunity comes up, Little Miss likes, she went through a phase where she liked participating in musicals and such. Like, we'll ask, like, oh, wow, auditions are coming up. Are you interested? Would you like to? And then we let them make their own decisions. One of the most difficult, this was really tough. My guy was in the Civil Air Patrol for a period of time, and he actually decided that he didn't want to participate anymore. And that was the most difficult level of acceptance that I've had to have when it comes to activities. So, he could have his pilot's license. He could rank up. If he ever decided to go into the military, he could actually enter as an officer. There are just so many opportunities that even just the leadership abilities that they learn in the Civil Air Patrol, it's such a great program. But he decided he didn't want to participate anymore. He was also the one that decided he wanted to go into the program. And so that was really a very challenging level of acceptance for me to say, does he get to call the shot? It's his life. He chose to go into activity. Is he going to get to choose to exit out of the activity? And we did allow him to exit out of that activity because we know that it's really important that they are learning during these formative years as young adults, during these teen years, of how do I make decisions? That's kind of a big decision for a teenager, right? I am putting that for a teenager. For us as adults, probably maybe not that big of a decision to make, but for a teenager in the level of responsibility that they have, probably a more difficult decision to make. And so learning how that feels, learning to be present with it, learning to evaluate that. So my point in kind of putting all this out there is that it's so important that we allow youth to be able to choose the activities that they are engaged in. Unfortunately, most parents want to fill their kids' schedules with activities. Little Miss is always grateful. She's like, I don't know how And she'll name off different friends of hers. She's like, I don't know how she does it. Like, she just is always at something. But little Miss, she likes challenging herself to learn flips, and she's self-driven and self-motivated in all these different ways, and she's experimenting and exploring. Like, she's always coming up with something new all on her own. She's like, I wouldn't have time to do all these cool things that I do. I'm like, you're awesome. I'm glad you know that about yourself. But she has a space to do that. Most kids today are living a prescribed life. And I cannot even imagine the pressure that puts on them. Just pause and think about it. Like, if I'm involved in an activity and my parents, let's just take sports, for example. That's like the easy one. And, like, oh, well, I'm in sports and I'm on the team. And now I have pressure from my teammates because we want to win. And let's be real, people do want to win. They don't just want to play and have fun. There's always going to be the kid on the team that really wants to win. And in everyone's heart, they really want to win. I really do believe that. I think that most of us, like, no, who say like, oh, it's okay, I just want to have a good time. Like, if you dug deep, you want to win. Let's be real. And it's okay to want to win, right? I don't know why there's stigma, like it's bad to win. Like, why is it bad to have that feeling and that ambition and that motivation? But kids are put into these situations. Now, I will share the experience. You may have the child or young adult that is excels at a sport, or you might have someone that doesn't excel at the sport in the way that the team appreciates, right? And so maybe your guy is the quarterback. Well, my guy was not the quarterback, and my guy didn't have fun, and he didn't like how, when he was on a sports team, he didn't like how the other players treated people. He's like, they're mean. Like, now I know some of you, Super Red Steve's like, come on, he needs to get a thicker skin. So I know, like, there's the mom side, and then there's going to be the dad side to this. So I'm definitely aware of that. But part of this was like, he's a tough guy, but he's also very compassionate and tender, and doesn't like seeing people get bullied or pushed around, or, like verbally, like there is verbal abuse that takes place. That is exactly what that is out there. And somehow verbal abuse is okay in the sports arena, which is crazy to me. And so he doesn't like that relationship and how people even treated him when he was on teams. And so he's like, I don't want anything to do with it. I don't want anything to do with these people. But I think about all the kids, and Super Red Steve affirmed a lot of the pressure he felt. He was a very good athlete. And I'm not saying that my guy wasn't. He just didn't like the atmosphere, the social atmosphere of it. He did not like Super Red Steve. He didn't like that part of the atmosphere, but he had a different reason that he wanted to excel at sports. And so he's able to push through that. So I think about this pressure where these kids are in activities, and there's pressure from the adults to some extent. And then there are pressure from peers to excel and to do great. And not all of that pressure is actually good or healthy. Super Rad Steve, he was able to navigate those pressures in a different way than our guy was able to handle those pressures. They are different people. And so understanding and recognizing who is this person who is going to be navigating this, and how am I going to support this person in navigating this? These are going to be really important questions for us to ask, and conversations to have, especially as they get older, and to not consider it a loss because my kid isn't participating in this. And so now that's a reflection on me. And really, to me, that's what I call performance-based parenting. It's like, oh, well, my kid's performance is a reflection of me. No, it's not. But again, this is another reason why it sucks to be a kid right now. Because we have a lot of parents where their identity is wrapped up in their kids and in their kids' ability, instead of, hey, I am me, you are you. We're not the same people, and my identity is not tied and tethered to yours. You have the freedom to be who you are created to be, and to learn how to be that person. And if you are struggling with that, that's not a reflection on me. Now, I've had a lot of experience with this because I have a beautifully, wonderfully, such a strong son. Like, he's always been strong and independent and very autonomous. And that was very interesting to navigate. I didn't always navigate it well. And I went through that entire stage that was like, I'm failing as a parent because my kid won't blah, blah, blah. Fill in the blank however you want. You can fill in this blank with so many things, right? And we have to just like uncouple ourselves from actually, I am training, teaching, guiding appropriately. I cannot force anybody to do this, but guess what? He's a teenager and he's really great. He's so awesome, And so I think when we give that space and that freedom to be themselves and to figure out how to be themselves, it serves everybody so well. But unfortunately, it sucks to be a kid today because most parents are performance-based parents. Most parents are also fear-based parents. They are terrified of, oh my gosh, if my kid isn't involved in all these different activities, then they will not get into the right college. They're not going to get the scholarship. They're not going to be in the right social group. They're not going to have the right exposure and experience so that they can do what? Like, those are maybe our dreams, but are those our kids' dreams, desires, wishes? And so right now, there's a lot of fear, and the fear of, oh my gosh, what kind of trouble are they going to get into? Particularly in my small town environment. And there are a lot of small towns across the country. A lot of people in this small town, they want their kids. They're like, the only way to keep them out. People told us this repeatedly when we moved up here and we had a second grader and a kindergartner. They said, you have to put them in activities because that's the only way they're going to stay out of trouble when they're teenagers. You got to keep them active. And I watch families that have that fear-based mentality of like, oh, if we don't have activities for them, then they're going to do bad things. Okay, what on earth does that even say about our respect and our value of our kids? Like, wow. Actually, Simone, like my girl, little miss, she would just implode if she did not have the freedom to just be curious and explore and to do all these weird, cool experiments that she does. Like, that would be robbing her of something. If I had her and at one point she had chosen dance as an avenue, right, as an activity, but now she's chosen not to do that. And so, like, if her time is being monopolized by other activities, she wouldn't have the opportunity to explore these things that she's doing. So we have to evaluate, one, is this about me? Is this about my identity? Am I concerned about how this is reflecting on me as a parent? And am I responding out of some fear, a deeper belief I have that something detrimentally is going to go wrong for my kids if X, Y, and Z does or does not happen? And then, so these are, can you imagine, just right there, that is so much pressure. But that is not the end of the pressure that we put on kids today. Like, it's tremendous. There are actually books written out there right now called How to Raise a World Changer. Dang! No pressure at all, but you need to change the world. The world's a bad place. My generation and the previous generations screwed it up. It's your responsibility to change the world. What? Like, that's a lot of pressure. Now, hear me, conscious investor. I'm not saying it's not good to raise our kids with that ability to say, like, can I contribute and improve the world around me? But then to take it this step further and to say, I am going to raise a world changer. That becomes manufacturing our kids. They are entrusted to us, entrusted to our care, but we are not the person that's going to say, this is who you will be in the world. you are going to be a world changer. Like it or not, you will be a world changer. Like that is not our role as a parent, as a, I love to call it a trusted guide. That is the highest calling. I want my kids someday. It would fill my heart if they said, you are my trusted guide, Mom. Because it transcends. It's not, I'm a parent. It means I've earned their trust over the years to where they're going to come to me for wisdom and guidance as they're making their own decisions for their life. And this is so important. It's their life, not ours. No, we get to fill them with all the good stuff. And guess what? We also put in some coal because we're human, right? We don't just add good stuff. We add some fractures in there along the way because we are human and fallen. But we get to fill in and pour in and gird them up, help them build that foundation so that they can stand strong in the world, that they don't need to rely on us, that they don't need to rely on an activity, or I don't have to have the pressure. So we talked last week about, hey, why are you not sleeping at night? And we were talking about, are you taking responsibility that's not yours? Are you doing too many activities? Well, kids today are being conditioned to do just that. And they're looking at the adults around them, and the adults around them are doing just that. So as you're reflecting on this, I want to encourage you to do personal evaluation, say, what am I modeling for the youth of tomorrow? And that youth is the kids that God entrusted to us. And those kids might not be our biological kids. They might not be kids living under our roof. They could be any youth within our sphere, in our influence, that see us, that have line of sight. And I'm sure you can relate to this, conscious investor, where you see people, maybe your parents had some friends and you watched those people from afar. You didn't actually have much of a relationship, but you just had line of sight, or you heard your parents talking. And so in a way, they end up influencing you and shaping your idea of, oh, this is what adults do. This is how they respond. This is how they navigate things. And so you are also that person in a youth's life today where their parents are talking, or, mom's getting her hair done and they're talking, and you come up in conscious investor. I know you'd only come up in great ways, and they're like, wow, look at, and so now that's going to be a great influence. Like, wow, just an earshot, that youth is going to be influenced because there's something good. But we want to make sure that we're not adding pressure, that we're being a good role model for those people around us. And I even put down here my notes, there aren't, oh gosh, this goes into another area. When we're talking about role models, think about the pressure that youth have today to accept. It blows my mind how contradictory this is. And so we have this pressure where you need to accept the kids around you. Whatever is going on with the kids around you, you need to have acceptance of them. Okay, let's just take a little quick look-see over on, turn on any social platform, turn on any news platform. What the heck are the adults doing? Are we role modeling this? And this transcends the aisle per se, right? This is not a right side, left side. This is at every side. Like, adults today need to get things together because we're not role modeling this level of acceptance. It's mind-boggling to me that we're saying with our mouth and that they are seeing the hypocrisy in and of themselves. The youth of today are looking to the adults and they're like, wow, that's really interesting because you're telling me that I need to have a level of acceptance. And yet you are like passionately trashing somebody else, somebody's beliefs, somebody's values, someone, how they're doing this. Like, you're just trashing people. That hypocrisy is more detrimental than anything else. Like, we lose as adults, as the adult sphere. And even if you are one of the adults who's actually doing a great job role modeling, our credibility is actually getting eroded and shot down because of everybody who isn't. It's like, wow, if we're going to say that this is a value that we have, then we need to model that value so that they can see, wow, that was hard for me over on the playground. That was hard for me at the cafeteria, at the high school level or whatever, right? Like, but I saw these adults in my life navigate really uncomfortable things. I can remember my dad, he was such just an amazing human, right? He actually had, and he's a gentle soul. Someone came into his real estate office and got up in my dad's face and yelled at my dad. And I wasn't there, but I heard stories from the other adults that were there and witnessed this. And I heard this as an adult. Years later, when I went into real estate and was working in the office, these people, they'd be like share stories with me about my dad. This is one that they told me. They're like, your dad didn't flinch. He just kept his composure and was super calm. So my dad had this ability to internally navigate that. And I wish he were still alive so I could talk with him about this, just because I've done so much of my own growth and development. I'd love to be able to ask him about how he was able to do that. But that's the role models. Those are the role models that we don't have any longer. Or, I'm sorry. I just completely contradicted myself, because I know, Conscious Investor, you are that kind of role model to the world and to the youth around you. There aren't many role models like that. There aren't many role models that when they're at the store and something goes wrong and they're overcharged for something, that don't get frustrated and upset in a ridiculous way towards the cashier, right? Like, adults themselves aren't self-regulating and navigating well, but we're telling youth to do so. Sure sucks to be a kid today. Like, man, hey, grown-ups, can you guys pull this together and just set some examples of what to do versus what not to do? Oh my gosh. Final area where I think that it sucks to be a kid today, and that is that, oh my gosh, you have to be smart. You have to be physically fit. But then I had to write this down. I was thinking about the cues that all of the kids are supposed to have. They have to have their IQ, their intelligence, right? They have to have their EQ, their emotional intelligence. They have to have their social intelligence, and then they have to have their spiritual intelligence. And I think there are a couple others. Like, there are all these different intelligences now. And it's expected that youth excel in all of these intelligences. It's kind of like, man, maybe they have a zone of genius, and maybe one of those, maybe they have a low IQ, but they have a super strong spiritual and social IQ and emotional IQ. Like, can we just have, like, what pressure are we putting on the youth of today? It's pretty extraordinary. So I think it's worthwhile to just kind of go to 30,000 feet and look at what is shaping the youth of today. And amongst all of this, you have probably heard many adults say, like, oh my gosh, the kids of today, they're so confused. And they just, I don't even know what's going to happen to the world. I'm like, where do you think a lot of that confusion is coming from, adults? Right? Like, there's a lot of confusion, but let's look at who the role models are. Let's look at what is taking place, because that's probably going to share a lot about the narrative of why there is a lot of confusion taking place. So what can we do? Well, Conscious Investor, I already know that you are part of the solution, but I want to encourage you to amplify your voice a bit. In the sense of this, I just want to encourage you to not dim your light, to not play small, to encourage the people around you when you are seeing your friends or colleagues, whoever it is, navigate, even strangers. I am very much right. Strangers are just friends you haven't met, and I will encourage a stranger to say like, "Wow, like what a great job handling that with with your kiddo." Like people need that type of encouragement because there's a lot of pressure on parents today. And so we could also say sucks to be a parent today, right? We can really take this a lot of different directions, but I don't think that enough people are talking about how much pressure is on the youth and how actually fantastic so many of the youth are. I hear stories from my kids, and I do hear some of the stories where they're like, whoa. And then I hear so many stories where I'm like, golly, I know I've heard that name and I've heard people say not nice things about that person, that youth. And yet the evidence that is being presented to me repeatedly is like, wow, what a really grounded person. Like that person's really got their stuff together, especially for somebody that age navigating all of this. Like, good job. Right. So I just want to encourage us to encourage the youth to be on their side. Let's take some of this pressure off. If you have some of your friends, like I've done this and I continue to do this, and I will continue in the future to do this. Like, as parents come to you and they're trying to plan out their kids' lives, a gentle reminder that they're entrusted to us, that they're not our property, that we can guide them and we can encourage them, but we need to be empowering our youth to be able to listen. For me, for being vertically aligned, like I want my kids listening to God. We were all driving to school the other day and having a conversation in the car, and I told the kids like the number one thing is like you're not going to always make Dad and I happy, so you need to evaluate. You know what it was? Sorry, conscious investor. You're still listening, so you probably will appreciate this. But little Miss was wearing a shirt, and she's the first time ever that I've noticed that she's actually really self-aware of like how she was looking and things like that. And so it turned into a production, and we were talking about we're going to disappoint people, we're going to let people down, and we have to live our life from the inside out and to not try to please people or try to fit in with people just to fit in. But we want to make sure. And I said, you guys are going to disappoint Dad and I, just like we have already disappointed you at times. Like that's part of human nature. But the one person, like, just make sure you are like, if you can stand before God, you're good. That's what matters. Right. And so like teaching our kids from early on, like, how do you lead life from the inside out? Because when we can teach them to do that, they can be resilient in a world that is very confused. And there are a lot of reasons why there's pressure and confusion, because look at the mess. Look at the mess, adults. Can we stop bickering and arguing and start, having real, honest, sincere discussions? So, yes, our kids do not need the pressure to change the world. And I think that all of these books are extremely well intended. So I don't want to give a slight on authors' good intentions and stuff. And I'm sure there's a lot of great content in a lot of those books. But guess what? Parents who are listening right now, I just got rid of a stack of parenting books that I had from when the kids were little. And I'm so glad that I freed myself from those books years ago. And you are equipped. Your kids were entrusted to you for a reason. Like you are pre-qualified to parent that person. And they, in turn, are going to have influence in your life, and they should, because God put that youth in your life to help shape your life. It's a mutual exchange. And a lot of people don't realize, like, wow, it's a two-way street. Just because we are providers and protectors and guides doesn't mean that we're not going to be shaped and influenced and informed by what our youth are doing in our life. So let's be open to that, okay? And let's give them space. Let's give them time space. They don't need to be in every single activity. They don't need to have all of their life scripted out. They need to know how how to get in touch with themselves and understand who they are so that they can be that person. Well, that's probably a hot topic in some regards, but I am really curious what you think, conscious investor, on this topic. Um, this is a conversation and we are respectful people. And so if you agree or if you don't agree, that's cool. Let me know what you are thinking. Share the podcast episode on a social, start a conversation around this podcast episode. This is a conversation I believe that more people need to be having. I think that the youth of today need us to be advocating for them in this regard. And what we can do is that we can also look at the byproducts. There's an entire generation or onset of a generation, right, that has already been like Gen Z. That is like one of the most prescripted lives ever. It is really probably the first time that it was so scripted out for them with the activities and the expectations and such. And so maybe if we start looking at them as a body of evidence and saying, how is this working out for that demographic? And if we continue on this path, what's the net outcome going to be? Is that an asset? Is it a liability? So let me know your thoughts. If you could do that over on Apple Podcasts. They allow you to leave your reviews, and you can leave an honest review. If you have a dissenting opinion, like, please don't hesitate. Like, it's not about me. We're talking about a topic and we're talking about an idea, and we can flesh that out together. Until next time, live in the fullness of freedom, and be sure to subscribe and follow on whatever platform you are listening or watching on.